Hello and welcome to the sixth edition of LA Rams Central. I'll be going solo this time. Eric was not with me. This show is going to be significantly shorter, I believe, at least I'm hoping. I'm still going to break it up into 3 parts. I'm going to start with the Rams' current news, and then I'm going to do a little bit of the other team focus, and then I'm going to wrap it up with a mini rant, I guess you could call it, or certainly something worth talking about. So first and foremost, there's been a lot of news swirling around about the Rams, and there's a couple things that I want to clear up. Number one, in case you haven't heard, the Oakland Raiders are staying in Oakland for 2016. It looks like they might actually be working out a deal to stay in 2017 to possibly perpetuate a long-term solution to a stadium. We already know the San Diego Chargers are staying in San Diego. I expect the June vote to go their way. And with the $100 million that the NFL is going to be giving them, it should be enough to put them over the top to build the stadium that they need. Although I still think space is an issue in San Diego, I still think keeping them in San Diego is going to be important. And I believe that the Chargers are going to use the facility much the same way they did with the San Diego Aztecs. I think they'll keep it, San Diego State Aztecs. I think they'll keep it as a multi-purpose stadium that will host both the San Diego State Aztecs as well as themselves. So that's currently the news about all of the teams swirling around who's going to move. So the Rams are the only game in town in LA, as it should be, and it looks like the Chargers are going to stay in San Diego and Oakland's going to stay in Oakland. There's a lot of other things, however, that have been popping up that I've not been pleased with. This ridiculousness that Magic Johnson pulled, trying to convince a no-arm, no-talent hack to come to LA. I don't understand the desire to bring a broken-down freaking quarterback into LA. All right? We did this with Joe Namath, and it failed miserably. Do not bring in a washed-up, no-talent quarterback just because he's a name. If you're going to do that, there are plenty of other name, big name hacks that are out there that you could throw your money at. That will put the Rams organization back at least 3 seasons if they get Peyton Manning. It just will. The man is incapable of throwing further than 10 yards downfield. We at least have a quarterback in Nick Foles that can throw the ball 40 yards downfield, albeit sometimes to the other team, but at least he can get the ball downfield if need be. We don't need that. You know how much I don't like, what's his name there, Case Keenum. But I'd rather have Case Keenum than Peyton Manning right now because at least that guy, again, can kind of throw the ball downfield. And you're not going to have to pay him nearly as much money as you'd have to pay that overpaid blowhard in Peyton Manning. I'm not a Peyton Manning fan. Never have been. Never will be. The man's won 2 Super Bowls. And one of them was because he went against Rex Grossman in the Super Bowl. And this one because he had a phenomenal defense. So forgive me for not anointing Peyton Manning as the greatest quarterback of all time. That distinction still belongs to Joe Montana. If you want to argue with me, 4 Super Bowls, no interceptions. Not Peyton, not Tom, not Terry, not Steve. No one can. Well, Steve Young only played in 1 Super Bowl, so you can't count that. But not Troy. You can't. No one else can make that claim. 4 Super Bowls. 4. No interceptions. And believe me, I'm no 49er fan. So that puts to bed the whole Peyton Manning BS. We don't want him, and I don't believe the Rams are going to go get him. I don't think Peyton Manning's going to play. I do think he's definitely going to retire. But I think the last thing he's going to want to do is go to a team that has a great defense that desperately needs his position to perform to win the Super Bowl or even get to the playoffs. And he knows he can't perform. And if that team doesn't perform with all the other parts around it doing well, for a man that doesn't know how to take responsibility for his own actions, he's going to have nowhere to blame but himself. So I don't believe he's going to do that. So the narcissistic, egotistical blowhard known as Peyton Manning will ride off in the sunset with a Super Bowl trophy, and we're finally rid of him. So what does that mean for the Rams at the quarterback position? Draft. Now I'm hearing Wentz may go to Cleveland, or Goff is going to go to San Francisco. I'm convinced that these people that do these mock drafts, they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They don't. They're basically saying that despite desperate needs that a team may have, they're just going to draft the guy that they want them to draft. Because let's face it, I've said it before, these guys in the media, they love Dallas. They absolutely love the 49ers. They love the Seahawks. They love the Steelers. They love the Broncos. And they love the Patriots. Those teams are going to get the best players coming out of the draft every single year in their mock drafts. And then it 90% of the time doesn't happen that way. So I'm pretty confident in the draft projection that Eric and I did the last 2 weeks. Is there a guarantee that that's how it's going to unfold? No. Wentz going to Cleveland is just as likely as Goff going to Cleveland. But I will tell you this. If Wentz goes to Cleveland, I don't believe Dallas goes and gets Goff. I think they definitely then focus on a different position. And I think Goff would fall to the Rams. And I'll tell you right now, if the Rams get Goff, that's just as good as getting Wentz. It may even be better because here's a guy that was projected to go number 1 out of the quarterback position and ended up getting bypassed by 2 or 3 teams. He's going to have a chip on his shoulder the size of Tom Brady's. I was going to say Peyton Manning's head, but I figured that might be mean, and that's too big of a chip. No one can logically play with that on their shoulder. But in all kidding aside, that's a big deal. So I think getting a burned Goff or getting a Wentz, and even a Paxton Lynch for that matter, I think you can't. Those 3 quarterbacks with the team they have, I think, could definitely get the job done that needs to be done. Goff is NFL ready right now. If the Rams end up getting Goff instead of Wentz, then there's no need for Nick Foles or anybody else to start. You can Matt Ryan that crap and put him right in and be ready to make a playoff run. I genuinely believe that. I think Wentz will need some time. Paxton Lynch will need some time. But Goff, I don't think, needs a lot of time. I want to take some time to congratulate Todd Gurley for winning NFL Rookie of the Year. Yet another Ram running back that did it. Ram running backs in the past that have won that honor is Eric Dickerson, Jerome Bettis, and now Todd Gurley. And that's quite the company. No organization in professional football has produced the litany of running backs in its history like the Rams have. The Bears have Peyton and Sayers, but then it kind of falls off from there. The Browns had Leroy Kelly and Jim Brown, and then there was a fall off there. I guess you could throw Ernest Biner in there years later. But the Rams have been consistent, whether it was John Arnett, Lawrence McCutcheon, Dick Bass, Wendell Tyler, Eric Dickerson, Jerome Bettis, Steven Jackson. It's just consistent. We go a little bit of time without a big-time running back, and Todd Gurley, I think, is going to be much better than Jerome Bettis for 2 reasons. He's got an attitude where Jerome Bettis had this mindset of, I'm going to run over everybody, until he started realizing he was taking a lot of punishment. And starting in the 95 season, end of 94, the last half of the 94 season and in 1995, Jerome Bettis in a Ram uniform adapted the mentality of, oh God, here comes a safety, and dive. Which is why the Rams got rid of him, because he wasn't producing anymore. He wasn't running over safeties. He was dodging their tackles by taking a dive. And good riddance, as far as I was concerned. I liked Jerome Bettis for about 2 seasons, and then I didn't like him anymore. Todd Gurley's the real deal. He's like a blend between Steven Jackson and, well, I'm just going to say what I said before. I think Todd Gurley's the closest thing to Lawrence McCutcheon our generation will ever see, because we weren't alive to see Lawrence McCutcheon, or at least not old enough to remember. Now we're seeing him in a modern body several decades later, and that's the best analogy I can give. That's who he reminds me of. He reminds me of a younger, faster, a little bit stronger Lawrence McCutcheon, which is high praise. If you're a Ram fan, you can appreciate that. So congratulations to Todd Gurley being the 3rd Ram running back to win NFL Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. That's a pretty big deal. I want to reiterate a couple of Ram needs in free agency as we near free agency here, which is in a couple of weeks. Free agency actually starts on March 3rd, which is a good day for me. But it's important to note that with free agency coming, what the Rams genuinely need. What the Rams genuinely need are three positions. Okay? They desperately need a corner. Okay? Maybe even two, but certainly they need one solid corner. If they can find one in free agency, that will be huge. They need an offensive lineman, whether it's guard or tackle. I would prefer tackle. But if the only thing out there is, say, a center or a guard, like Mack from the Cleveland Browns, he's a center that could be available. You could definitely plug him in and restructure the line the way you want to. The two free agents that I'm looking at on the O-line in this order would be Mack from the Cleveland Browns and Okun from the Seattle Seahawks. Either one of those two will instantly make our football team dramatically better on the offensive side of the ball. And the third position that I think they could address in free agency, and maybe they should address in free agency, is wide receiver. If they're going to get the quarterback in the draft, then they need to get a wide receiver, and they need to get a big-name wide receiver. I like Pierre Garçon. I think with him and Tavon and Kenny Britt, it gives you a lot of options and a proven receiver at that position. I will fully admit, guys, there are a lot better receivers out there. But I think if the Rams were smart and they said, let's get a productive, big-time receiver let's get a productive receiver with big-time potential who can make plays down the field and still has a lot in the tank that we can get relatively cheap and then address other needs with the money we save. I think Pierre Garçon's the best likely choice. But there's no guarantee that that's even going to happen. Who knows? The Redskins could still sign him. There's a lot going on there. So there are options at wide receiver. But those are the three positions, I think, if they don't address the quarterback position. And I guess theoretically they still could. Because if the Redskins don't sign Kirk Cousins, that might be a good landing spot for the Rams. I've been calling for Kirk Cousins since he was the backup his rookie year behind RG3. I thought that might be a good maneuver there for the Rams to get him, but I fully expect the Redskins to franchise tag him and then sign him to a long-term deal next year. So I think he's out of the equation. Brock Osweiler, that's a quarterback that I'd like to get to, but I don't see that happening. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start the second segment, which is Current News in Focus, which is where we're going to talk a little bit about some of these free agent news that's been coming out. So as I was saying with Kirk Cousins, I definitely think Kirk Cousins, I think he signs with the Redskins, although contract negotiations have broken off. It looks like they're going to franchise tag him for $20 million. That's the reason contract negotiations shut down. He wanted more than $20 million, or at least $20 million. The Redskins weren't offering him $20 million from everything I'm hearing. So they cut off negotiations, and it looks like they're going to slap the tag on him and call it a day. So Cousins is going nowhere. Von Miller is probably going to get franchise tagged. If the Broncos are smart, and I think they are, if the Broncos are smart, they're going to do the exclusive, which will not allow other teams to then bid on Von Miller, because I think they could still lose Von Miller if they don't put the exclusive on him. If they allow other teams to put a bid on Von Miller, I think they're going to see themselves losing him, because people will definitely overpay to get him, and they'll be more than happy to give up a first or a second round, two first-round picks, especially as everyone's been saying, if it's a late team, a team that's in the thick of it, a team like the Bengals or a team like the Seahawks even, God forbid, or somebody like the Cardinals, who they need a pass rusher, and they're like 2 first-round picks for where we're picking and where we will pick next year. Yeah, we'll make that deal, every single time. So I think it's important that the Broncos put the exclusive on him to prevent that. Brock Osweiler, I don't understand. Really, you're going to stay in Denver? Like, you want to stay in an environment where they said, you're a piece of garbage? We'd rather trust a guy who can't throw the football, who can't make good decisions over you for this playoff run. And then to show you the sad state of the AFC, it worked. I still can't believe the Denver Broncos won the Super Bowl. Brock's going to stay. From everything I'm hearing, Brock Osweiler said that he will stay in Denver. And they'll probably, sign him to a deal that's relatively affordable. Although if he does end up being let go, that's a fragile situation, because I could see him going a lot of places. And don't be surprised if one of those places Brock Osweiler ends up is someplace like a Buffalo or a Kansas City or maybe even in LA. Who knows? I don't know if the Rams would pay that kind of money on a quarterback that isn't quite proven yet, though. That might be a situation we don't know. The other news, I'm going to stay back. I'm going to go, before I go to the Redskins, I'll end with the Redskins. I want to talk about Matt Forte. There's some possible landing spots for Matt Forte that everyone's talking about. Dallas I found to be an intriguing spot. If he goes there, there's no need to get Ezekiel Elliott. But that would be under the assumption that Dallas genuinely believes they can win right now with just that free agent signing. Dallas needs a lot, and they've got to get younger. They're too old at a lot of positions. I don't see Matt Forte going to Dallas. I could see Matt Forte for big money being signed by the Washington Redskins. Washington's a landing spot because Alfred Morris is being let go. Cleveland's a landing spot because that's a team that has some money under the cap that they'd be willing to fork out a lot of cash to get a Matt Forte. I don't see Forte going to Detroit. I've heard that. I think that's pretty unlikely. I don't see him going to a team like Arizona, maybe a Seattle. Now, there's a team that can win right now, and if they spent big money on him and brought him in, I think the 12th man in Seattle would be going bat-stick crazy, losing Marshawn Lynch and signing Matt Forte, a solid, serviceable back who's easily got 3 years left in the tank, I believe. I think Seattle's the most likely landing spot, as much as I hate to say that, although I could see Cleveland or Washington as well, depending on the Redskins' financial situation. We all know that the Redskins owner Snyder has no problem spending money. So forking out the bucks to bring in a guy like that, I don't think he would hesitate to do. So if I had to decide, I think he could either end up in Washington or Seattle. I think one of those two places is probably his most likely landing spot, although I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up in New England. I've heard that. A chance to win a championship, Tom Brady, there's another team that he could easily go to. I just don't know if Forte would want to go there because I don't think he'd get the carries in the running game that he would like. But who knows? I mean, maybe if they had Forte, they'd run him more. I don't know. They did with Corey Dillon, but that was a different time and a different Patriot team. So I think those are the three spots, though, I see Forte going to: New England, Washington, or Seattle. I don't see him going anywhere else unless Cleveland really severely overpaid for him. I think he might follow the money in that respect and help that organization a little bit. But I don't think that's what will happen. I think it'll either be New England, Washington, or Seattle. I think that's Matt Forte's end game. So I want to take a little bit today to focus on the Redskins. Next week, I'm going to focus on the I'm thinking about the Vikings, and then the following week, I'm going to focus on the Saints. And I'm going to try to pick a different team each week to have a focus on, where I'm spending a little bit of time talking about them up until we get to the preseason. I should be able to get every team before then. And this week it's the Redskins because there is a lot of uncertainty. They're going to franchise tag Kirk Cousins. They're probably going to lose Pierre Garçon, but they're probably going to keep Reed and a couple other key players in that offense. I think if the Redskins were to get a Matt Forte with the defense and the football team that they already have in play, because let's face it, against Green Bay, there was no semblance of a running game at all. You get that center that I talked about from Alabama. You get that running back, Matt Forte, and that defense gets a year better under the system and a year wiser. I think Washington's going to be very, very dangerous. They don't need a lot. They just need time. They're a relatively young team. So I think the Redskins could be really good really soon. I do see a possibility of them getting a different type of back if Forte ends up going to New England or, say, a Seattle, because they're going to lose Alfred Morris, and that's a tough loss. I would personally like to see the Rams pick up Alfred Morris because it gives you a significantly greater upgrade at the backup running back position. You could lead block him for Todd Gurley in certain formations, but more importantly, you can spell Gurley and keep him relatively fresh for the end of the season. especially with that knee injury. It'd be nice to have a backup that you know you can hand the ball off to and be supremely confident that he'll get the job done. But we'll see if the Rams address the running back position in the free agency with a move like that. But I do think, getting back to the Redskins, you look at their defense and you look at what they did last year. They won the division. They had that great stretch at the end of the year. I knew they were going to win the last 4 games of the season. Me and Eric had talked about it. Eric thought they were going to go 3-1, maybe 2-2, and really thought maybe Philadelphia would finally find a way to win that division. But I just liked the way the Redskins played, and they beat so many quality teams along the way. And once they got over that road hump and beat the Bears in Chicago, the Redskins were well on their way. And although they had a tremendous setback in the playoff game against Green Bay, and that was an ugly loss, there's no question for the Redskins fans, that was an ugly loss. But it wasn't the loss that got my attention. It was the way they came together and played that season. They were an unconfident, unsure football team that gained confidence slowly along the way. And they overcame a lot. Losing to Dallas on that Monday night, I thought for a lesser Redskin team, it would have taken the sails completely out and that would have been ball game. Redskins are done. But instead, they really backed that up with a rallying cry and ended up winning their final 4 games to win the division. So I think the future's bright in Washington. I'm not a Jay Gruden fan. I don't think he's a particularly effective or great coach, but I do think they have a strong nucleus there now built from the draft and from guys that have come in, that I think the Redskins are kind of there on the doorstep, ready to be a consistent winner. And that's why this free agency period is going to be so important, both keeping their guys that are about to go to free agency and going and getting somebody like a Matt Forte or a game changer on either side of the ball, but I would think especially on offense, considering they couldn't do much against Green Bay, but then again, they couldn't do much on defense against Green Bay either, so maybe they want that pass rusher. But you're going to have to overpay, and a lot of these pass rushers, unless it's Mario Williams is a possibility. I think that's about the only pass rusher that I would spend the money on and feel relatively confident that he's going to get the job done. So, yeah, if you're a Redskins fan, man, future looks great. You've got some stuff coming down the pike that's going to look really good for you. It looks like Kirk Cousins is going to stay in Washington one way or another for one more year and really see if that's the guy, and I think he is, and I think you're going to be set. So that being said, we'll head to the third segment next. So for the third and final segment, I'm going to do something that I really haven't wanted to do, but a lot of people have been encouraging me to do it, including a fellow teacher colleague of mine by the name of Dr. Norton. So, Dr. Norton, on behalf of your request, I'm going to do it. So, we've hinted at this in a little bit with the Super Bowl post-game show prior to doing the NFC draft. The NFL officiating, in my opinion, has reached critical mass. We have a replay system that has no purpose. We have officials who, no matter how bad they screw up, still get a playoff game. If you recall this year, there was a referee group, an entire staff that was so bad in the Lions game that they had to take them away from the primetime game the next week and stick them in a 49er Cardinal game in San Francisco that no one watched. I happen to get the game being in Arizona. That same referee was the referee of the Redskins-Packers playoff game. What are you kidding me? The playoffs are supposed to be the best officiating crews through the course of the entire regular season. You're going to take a guy that was so bad that the NFL had to remove him from a primetime ticket to hide his ineffectiveness, and you reward that behavior with a playoff game. Mind blown. For me, the officiating has made the game unwatchable. It's hard enough to watch a football game today with the rules the way they are, where you can have the quarterback bootlegging to the right, staring at the entire right side of the field, being rushed and throw the ball away, and never at any point even bring his body in that direction. And then have a guy, do this or maybe that for a brief second and get a 5-yard holding penalty and an automatic first down for the offense. And it's so inconsistent that it makes a team trying to make an upset impossible. You really can't have as many, and you don't have as many upsets in today's football as you used to have, because there's just no way. You're asking teams to make 9 or 10 extra plays a game just to have a fighter's chance to win. And when you're playing against the New England Patriots, or you're playing against the Denver Broncos or even the Carolina Panthers, it's over. Game over. You give them 3 first downs via the penalty, or you take a touchdown off the board because of a ridiculous penalty like unnecessary roughness on the tight end there. What's his name for Carolina? I can't remember his name now. Olsen. The guy got hit, rocked, the ball popped out. The guy caught it in midair and went all the way for a touchdown, and they called it back for a personal foul. It's a ball game. I don't care what the final score is. You've effectively changed the momentum through the officiating. And it's gotten worse. For those of you that are football fans out there like me, no longer argue that baseball is boring because it's too long. Because I can watch a Major League Baseball game from the opening pitch till the end of the 9th inning, and it's now officially as long as a football game. It's as long as a football game. Between the penalties that are thrown every other play or every 5 plays, between the instant replays that you're looking at going, well, that's clearly going to be reversed, and then they come back and say the play stands as called, it blows me away. And then you hear these announcers justify these pathetic attempts at being a good referee with saying, oh, well, you must have been this or it must have been that. No one questions the officials. No one. No player, no coach is willing to take the fine, which I don't understand. How can you tell the fans that you have a system that's honorable, that isn't potentially fixed like the NBA? And let's face it, the NBA is fixed. We know that. There was a whole referee crew that got busted for the San Antonio Phoenix Suns series several years ago. How can you convince the fans that outcomes of games are not fixed or predetermined when you're not even allowed to question the bad calls that the officials make through the course of a game? Unless it comes from the media, the NFL will find the ever-living P out of the player, or chastise and find the ever-loving P out of the coach, and then the media gangs up on them by saying, oh, they're just sore losers and blah, blah. You've created a system that cannot be questioned. And when you have a system that cannot be questioned, you have a system that is suspect to corruption. You do. Now, am I sitting here saying that the NFL is fixed? Not all of them. Probably not most of them. But you're not going to convince me that maybe not a couple of them aren't. And I want to be very clear. If it is, as long as it's done by the NFL and it's not done by officials gambling, there's nothing illegal about it. If the league decides this team's going to win, it's their league. They have every right to do it. And they can do it through the officiating and no one questions it. To me, the officiating became something that I can't stomach in, I believe, 2011. I believe that was the year. The Rams lost to Seattle, Week 17 in Seattle for the division. An 8-8 record went down the tubes. They went 7-9. Seattle went 7-9, won the division, got Seattle in the wild card game. That year was the last year I had the NFL Sunday ticket. I canceled the ticket at the end of the season because I was done. I saw in a San Diego Charger game, one of the Ram defenders, and I can't remember his name, got a hand on his face mask by a Charger offensive lineman with the official 5 to 10 feet away on the sidelines, watching the line. The Charger grabbed him by the face mask, ripped his helmet off his head, and threw it to the side, and then shoved him to the ground. Phillip Rivers throws the ball right after, caught by Gates, touchdown Chargers. No penalty. That same game, Sam Bradford rolls out, throws it, runs 3 feet backwards, and then gets lit up by a Charger. I believe it was Merriman or Merriweather, whatever his name is. Now he's long out of it. I think he's out of the league. He might still be in it, but doesn't play much. But he was their big-time sacker at the time. No penalty. No late hit. Nothing. Rams lost that game, by the way, by less than 10 points. That incompletion forced them to punt when it should have been first down at the Charger 30 because of a 15-yard penalty. When you see things like that, and that's one game, the 49er overtime game where the guy called pass interference on O.J. Atogwe on a ball that could not be caught by King frigging Kong, Rob Gronkowski on the shoulder of 19 Rob Gronkowskis couldn't have caught the football. Okay? And they still called pass interference. In overtime, putting the ball at the Ram 13-yard line. Boop, field goal. 49ers win. That's 2 games. The Raiders won a game because of a defensive holding penalty that extended a drive that they then threw a completion, got in field goal range, and booted the game-winning field goal as time expired. That's 3 games. Okay? There were 2 other games through the course of the season. One was definitely winnable. By my count, the Rams should have been 11-5. 11-5, if not 12-4. And because of the officiating not being fair or balanced or following the rules, you rip a guy's helmet off, you should probably call hands of the face. Just a conclusion that I came to. Pretty sure that's not legal. You hit a quarterback 19 seconds after he throws the ball, or you're taking 6 or 7 steps to then lay into a guy who's throwing the football. I mean, that would have been a penalty in 1985. Forget 2011. So, to me, the officiating reached critical mass then. And I've been screaming at the top of my lungs that this has been going on and no one's been listening. Now people are starting to notice. Fast forward to this year, the Super Bowl, or just this year in general. Look, guys, I'm not a Dallas Cowboy fan. I'm not. But there's no way in hell what Dez Bryant did at Lambeau Field last year wasn't a catch. I'm sorry. That's a catch since 1919. Back when the Decatur Staleys were owned by George Halas. Okay? That's how long that play had been a catch. Officials made a bad call. They made a bad call. They called it incomplete. They gave some ridiculous justification. Not the first time, by the way, 2001 Tuck rule. I'm sorry for the Raider fans that are out there because we all know that was a fumble. That was ball game. New England did not deserve to even be in the Super Bowl, let alone have the opportunity to cheat, which we know they did, to win a game they had no business winning. Right? That was a fumble. Even Tom Brady thought it was a fumble. He dropped his head. Tears started flowing. Belichick's hands went up in the air. It was over. And then some ridiculous interpretation of a rule that no one's ever done. Judgment gives the Patriots the game. And last year, not this year, but 2015 postseason, 2014 postseason, Dez Bryant had the same thing happen to him. A ridiculous interpretation of what's a catch. which, again, instead of the NFL just saying, guys, we screwed up, we're sorry. Yeah, people would have been pissed, but okay. They doubled down on stupid. And they changed the rule. And now, no one in football knows what a catch is. And if you think you do, you're lying your butt off. You don't know what a catch is. You think you know what a catch is. But I guarantee you, half of the officials out there will take what you are convinced is a catch and rule it incomplete. Or what you're convinced is not a catch and rule it complete. I guarantee you. Nobody knows what a darn catch is anymore. And that actually goes back to Bert Emanuel in the playoff game in 99 against the Rams, the championship game, when he made a fuss that I had possession of the ball even though the ball hit the ground. Well, I'm sorry. According to the rule book, if any part of the football touches the ground, even if you're in possession, it's incomplete. And as soon as the NFL trying to screw the Rams over because, damn it, we could have had the Rams out of the playoffs right then and there, and yes, I believe that's what they did, we're going to make that a catch next time. So if we're ever in this position, it can benefit however we want the outcome to go. It's the only conclusion I can make. Because you're not going to sit here and tell me that all of a sudden is a catch when there have been guys that have been playing this game for, at that time, over 60, 70 years that simply went, I didn't catch it. I didn't protect the ball from hitting the ground. It hit the ground. That's on me. That's my bad. And I'm sure there were guys a long time ago that thought that should have been a catch, that understood what the rule was and just went with it. But because one crybaby on a team full of crybabies, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at that time, and yes, they were. I'm sorry. I liked the Buccaneers, but they had a team full of crybabies. Cried and moaned and complained and got their way. And they changed the rule. And that opened the floodgate for the we have no freaking idea what a catch is anymore rule that has now been implemented to double down on stupid that was done for the Dez Bryant situation. So, yeah, I have a real problem with officiating in the NFL right now. It's garbage. It's, in my opinion, the worst officiated sport in all of professional sports. Baseball gets it right more often. Basketball gets it right more often, and we already know that that's corrupt. Hockey gets it right more often. And here's what I don't understand. Why can't you just do what arena football does? So for those of you that don't know, this is what arena football does. Whenever there's a challenge to a play that was called, okay, the official puts on a headset with a microphone. Direct contact to the fans watching at home and in the stadium watching on the Jumbotron. And you hear the communication between him and the guy upstairs and what specifically he's looking for and why he's going to rule the way he's going to rule. No, in the NFL, they got to go under the hood to their little X-rated movie porn show that they're watching, because it's not football, because there are angles that we are getting on TV that if they are getting in their little X-rated porno, hooded shop, how are they missing these calls? We don't know what's being said. We don't know what they're looking at. We don't know what they're asking to look at. We have to go on faith that these incompetent idiots are doing their job. Really? Because they're not. Case in point, the Super Bowl. The dude caught the football, had possession, didn't, and according to the new rule, even though the ball had skimmed the ground, there was no movement. The ball and the hand didn't move. Everyone, including the referee that was the go-to guy, who was the official in the booth for the CBS network, thought it was a catch. And they came back and said, no catch. Proving my point. It's unfortunate that we have the worst officials in professional sports. And there's no sign of it stopping. because the NFL is not going to critique him. They're not going to fire him. They're not going to fine him. They're not going to do any of that. They're just going to let him keep being awful and then rewarding him with playoff games. That's what the NFL does. And so, yeah, I'm frustrated. I'm very frustrated with officiating because it's an unnecessary thing that doesn't need to happen. And to keep in mind, too, when we had those replacement refs that everyone went in an uproar and complained about because how dare they cost the NFL Network's favorite team, the Green Bay Packers, a game in the regular season, and it might cost them the playoffs, and how can you do that? First of all, to that game, let me just tell you the rule is the tie goes to the receiver. So those officials that were chastised and embarrassed, and eventually that crew was the reason the NFL went and broke their whole, didn't break their whole negotiation, but increased their negotiations to prevent the strike from continuing another week. That whole fiasco, those officials got it right. Seattle should have won that game. They should have won that game. The tie goes to the receiver. And once he hit the ground with possession in the end zone, that's a catch. So who had it? The receiver and the defender both had the ball. That's it. Tie goes to the receiver. You can't then rip it away and expect, hey, I got the ball. It was the right call. Sorry, Packer fans. Go scream at me, carry on, cuss at me on the bottom down here in your comments. Be all pissy about it. But the Seahawks should have won the game. The officials got that call right. And coincidentally, under those officials, the Rams were 3-1. When the regular officials came back, the Rams went 3 and whatever. I think 3-9. Went 3-9 down the stretch with the regular referees. So they were 3-1 with the replacements, where there was no care how the outcome went. They were just doing the best they could to ref it, and didn't do appreciably that much different as far as bad calls made than the regular NFL on a daily basis. So, yeah, I found that maddening. The NFL refs are garbage, and you suck at your job, and you should probably find a different one. So what's the solution? Well, the solution's threefold, and it is a simple one. Number one, make it a full-time job. Okay? There are coaches and players whose jobs are on the line that they do their job right. Because, see, an NFL owner doesn't care that a coach went 6-10 and got screwed or jobbed in 8 games and really could have been 13-3, 14-2. They don't care. You went 6-10. Get out. Right? So that man's family and that man's job and that man's record, which will depend on him getting another job somewhere else, all take a dump because you suck at your job. So make it a full-time job. That's number one. By making it a full-time job, you can now do number two. And you can't do two without one. Number two is you have an accountability system that allows for fines and suspensions. Okay? You have so many bad calls or you cost the team a game, you get fined. Do it multiple times in a season, meaning 2 or more, and you're suspended for X amount of games. Have the same rules apply to the officials that apply to the players and the coaches. It's only fair. It's only right. And number 3, you have the reward system, not just make the playoffs. You have a significant bonus attached to being announced to the playoff tournament. So whether you're a back judge or you're a referee, that guy is going to get a significant bonus for doing his job correctly. Now, some of you may think, well, why are we rewarding guys for not doing their job? Well, if that's the attitude, then we shouldn't pay athletes, right? I mean, they're paid to run the ball, so that if they achieve a certain goal, why reward them for achieving that goal? That's a stupid comment. Don't make that to me. Okay? You reward people for doing their job well. You do those 3 things, and you'll have the best officiating crew in professional sports. Now, on the flip side, you've got to make this catch rule more clear. if anything comes out of these rule meetings or this rule committee meeting or whenever the NFL owners are going to meet next, fix the darn catch rule. No one knows what it is anymore. Not even you. So get a definitive explanation and definition. Catch the ball. Tuck it away. 1-2 steps. Now it's live. If you hit the ground and the ball pops out, just like a running back, ground can't cause a fumble, you're good. First down. Catch stands. It's not hard to do. Go back to the 1998 catch rule. You do that, and all of this goes away. All of it goes away. But you got to make that decision. So that's how you fix it. That's all I can say. That's the best explanation I can give. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I'm hoping to have a couple of midweek shows here coming up in the future. Maybe a top 10 Rams running back. I'm still working on that. I'm not real satisfied with my list yet. I want to do more research. But I hope you guys enjoyed the show. That makes it for this week's episode of LA Rams Central. Obviously, if anything breaks, I'll make sure I bring it to you right away. And I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy your weekend. And I hope you enjoyed this show. As usual, guys, please make comments on the bottom line down there in the comments section for me. Any questions you ask me down there that you want me to address on the next show, just simply say, hey, address this in your next show. Here's my question, or however you want to word it, and I'll be sure to give it your name and that extra bit of attention. And lastly, I'm going to shameless plug here again, but please, guys, get other people to subscribe. If you like the show, show other people and see what they think. I appreciate the subscription so far. I've gotten quite a bit. You guys are awesome. And again, I hope you enjoy the show, and I'm looking forward to the next edition of LA Rams Central. But as of for this one, that wraps it up. Have a wonderful weekend.